Well, good afternoon, everyone. So apparently, none of you were okay with sitting here. So I'm going to stand here and look at all of you, if you don't mind. So we have a small crowd. So this actually is going to be great because it means that we can be hopefully a little more casual and ask questions along the way rather than having to save it up all towards the end. So with that said, let me kick it off by introducing myself. I'm Steve Shaw. I'm the SVP of Products for Automation Anywhere. Joining with me is Danny Sparrows, who's going to be coming up right after me, and then Patrick Burton, who is part of the Washington Post. So we have a fancy title here, but if we drop the title and the marketing words for a moment, what we really wanted to do is make sure that we're talking about the ground realities of getting APA to work for you. Because there's a lot of speak out there, there's all this amazing stuff, it's going to do the cure cancer and save the world. All great stuff. How is it actually getting implemented and what does the real life look like and what are the lessons that we can take away from that? I've had the good fortune of speaking with many of you and your peers and being able to go and take away lessons from the last year of what's hitting and what's not and what should we take away from that experience. So it's what I wanted to be able to share with you today. So with that said, all the usual stuff about Safe Harbor, when I speak about anything forward-looking, I will let you know. Otherwise, assume it to be generally available. So, I'm, as much as I'd like to fancy that I remember my Peter Pan quotes in the specifics, I'm actually a child of the 80s, so I remember this from this Information Society song of all places. But all of this has happened before, it'll all happen again, right? And you've heard sort of words like this before. The thing about AI is that it's very easy for everyone to get caught up with, this is so transformative and so radically different than what we've done in the past, that we're simply not going to see anything like this and it's going to change everything. That's true, but I would argue that we have seen this before. This is something that is not new. We've gone through transformations before. And by transformation, I'm specifically looking at something big. When I say big, it's not just changing some aspect of technology. It's not changing some aspect of business, but it's also affecting society. We'll, of course, focus on the business end of it. But when I was hunting around for ideas on, where have we seen this before and what are the lessons we can take away from that, it didn't occur to me that we didn't need to go that far. The internet transformation was that big. Think about 1995 versus 2005, right? How we lived, how we worked, the way we worked, all of those things changed, and so there's a model for this, and we want to be able to take away from that model. So with APA, as we heard this morning, the fundamental transition here is that we're not just thinking about processes anymore, but we're actually adding agents into the mix. And an agent, as you saw this morning, is that cognitive piece of this. So every time we've run across an automation where we've said, this isn't possible with classic RPA or task automation, it's now becoming possible and it becomes a new thing for us to be able to evaluate. The whole system that we've developed for this has got a rich set of capabilities, and I think the key takeaway from this is it's not all about AI, right? There's still fundamentals of process automation that's part of this story. So there's a predictable element of here. A business process is still a business process. It is a fixed process for most of you. And if it's a fixed process, the way we may implement it may change from time to time, or there might be variances in it, but the fundamental process is the same. And so we want to make sure that we're doing and taking advantage of that similarity from run to run and taking advantage of that consistency so that we're able to get reliability in our execution. And only taking those parts where we need that variability, where we say, you know what, the way that this will get implemented will change based on the context. Those parts we can scope down and apply AI to it. This gives us the benefit of having a reliable execution in where we can get it and AI where we need it. So I want to come back to where those changes are happening to us. So we can scope these changes into 5 different types of transformations. Scale of time, redefining what's competitive, new models, and change leadership expectations and metrics for business, the metrics we use for actually counting up what business looks like. The scale of time is really interesting because if you compare this from the internet revolution to now, what we're seeing is that in the internet revolution, we went fast and we went global. That was the heart of that change. With AI revolution, what we're seeing is a faster time to market. And an example of this is, think about what you might be hearing about vibe coding, right? If you take away the stuff, the press that gets a little bit over the top with how it's going to remove programmers altogether, the key takeaway from that is we're actually getting new developments to market faster. So I was speaking to somebody who is part of healthcare. And in their piece with healthcare, one of the things they brought up is they said, every time we get a new rule book, it's this big rule book, and we actually go in and we take 3 months to codify all of those policy changes that have happened across all of our business systems. So when somebody files a claim, the software knows what to do because those are the changes. If I could do this with a prompt and actually look up the policy and see, does this claim apply to the policy and what policy does it apply to and what should I do? I could build that in a fraction of the time. So the speed with which we could operate suddenly becomes a lot greater. And this is going to be a key thing in terms of competitive differentiation. For your organizations, as you're looking at how do we go and bring our products to market, and it doesn't have to be technology products, right? These can be services, this can be manufacturing, this could be any number of things. We're going to see that speed coming to bear really fast. The second thing around what is competitive. What we saw with the internet was that we were able to now do frequent updates very easily, right? Think about the moment that we started using Salesforce. And we said, wow, I'm now picking up changes every 3 months, and it's not a nightmare, right? And you compare that to an old Oracle system or an old SAP system, having to hand install all of those updates meant that you did not take updates for a year, 2 years, because those updates were time consuming. So now we were getting the best of that speed, and we're getting frequent updates with it. The nature of competitiveness changed as a result. An organization's ability to take advantage of those changes was the differentiation between a fast-moving organization and a slow-moving organization. With the AI revolution, what we're seeing is this shift towards the whole customer product experience. We're going to be able to go and customize what that product experience looks like for every single instance that we're dealing with somebody. The context of the customer is part of the product definition. So what they experience with us, how they interface with us, how they contact our customer service organizations, those are all going to change along the way. On the internet side, we saw things like dynamic pricing, right? We're creating new business models through this process. So whole new ways of thinking about pricing, what was available, microtransactions. We could now do things like IoT, which we never could do before. Those affected the way that we built our businesses. With the new business models in AI, what we're going to see is take your core products and now imagine the range of stuff that's adjacent to it. With AI, we're going to be able to go and move quickly into those adjacencies, whereas before we haven't been able to move that quickly. The leadership side of this is equally interesting, right? We're going to have to go and we expected our leaders to start thinking digitally. They had to think about the internet from the beginning. If they didn't embrace the internet, they missed it. Now the real question for leadership is going to be, can AI do this? And the faster that all of us in this room bring that to our leadership to say, what's the part that we can actually get AI to do and what shouldn't AI do? That's going to be equally important. And there's a temptation, AI will do everything. It's easy to talk about. Implementing it's another matter. And so that discipline of knowing when to bring it in and when not to is the expertise that you bring. And the better that you're able to bring that, the further differentiated your organization becomes. Lastly are the metrics. In the metrics with the internet, we saw huge decreases in costs, and we were able to do just-in-time. Just-in-time is really fascinating because now you could see an accurate view of your inventory globally in a second's notice and be able to make that a decision on how you want to manage manufacturing at that moment. We had never been able to do that prior to the internet. That global network connectivity changed what that looked like. Here, we're actually going to be thinking about that time to market again. But specifically, the business metric is how fast am I able to adapt to that change? And the further, the smaller that can get, the more useful your organization is going to be in adapting. And so as what we're going to see when we look at Wall Street and what they're asking, those are going to be the questions that we'll get on the quarterly calls. How fast are you able to adapt to this change? This change happened, have you adapted to it? Right. So let's go and bring those into how this is being played out and the lessons that we've learned over the last year. The first thing I want to point out is we've got to embrace the change. But at the same time, we want to be wary of the hype. It gets very easy to get caught up in the moment, especially events like this, right? We have a bunch of us up here telling you that this stuff is going to be next generation amazing, go adopt it now, right now. The thing that I want to ask all of you to do is challenge us, challenge our competitors to say, show me. Because it's easy to make slides, it's hard to make this stuff work, right? So being able to go and look at this, and this is why we make such a big deal about things like PRE, right? The process reasoning engine represents experience more so than anything else. It's a technology, and that technology captures that experience. There's a lot of pre-1.0 products out there, a lot of slideware out there. Having to see it and see it work is another matter altogether. The second big thing is changes have to actually work through an organization, right? So you take a classic example like Walmart, and I'm going to take an internet revolution example for them. What we found out after they made a lot of these transformations was that the whole way they managed their supply chain and the whole way they managed inventory changed with the internet. They started doing things like drinking from the Twitter fire hose. I don't know if you remember this term, right? The Twitter fire hose was every tweet happening at that moment, and very few people got access to that raw feed, because there's literally millions of these things coming in per second. But for those millions of things, if they were able to apply semantic analysis to it, they could go and figure out little clicks of who's talking about what in what area. And they could nail it down to this high school has this social clique, and this social clique is talking about this thing, and that person is an influencer. So if that influencer says something and tweets it out, chances are their friends are going to pick it up and buy it. So suddenly, when they would see a tweet about hey, this record is going to be really exciting, I just got it, it's awesome. They're already shipping updates to that local store to change what their inventory looks like, because they're expecting what that buying purchase is going to look like. That was sort of the speed of the internet. This is the sort of changes that when we think about AI, we want to apply across our organization. We don't want it to just go and say, how do I go and improve the back office? We don't want to get siloed about this. And this is where process orchestration matters. Being able to get out of sort of that perspective of how do I build a bunch of tasks to how am I going to bring an orchestrated process across multiple lines of business or multiple aspects of the business is going to be that differentiation where you're going to do something that will have a far bigger impact than just thinking about how am I going to solve this point problem. Don't throw away what works. Oh, the number of conversations I've had which started with, okay, so we're going to go from RPA to APA. And well, what do you mean RPA to APA? Because that sounds really scary, especially after, I just went and did version 11 to A360. All right. Some of you have clearly done that. Thank you for surviving with me. I used to have a beard, but then it literally went from all black to all white in this journey. Yeah, the beard is no longer. So I would pause to stop them, and I'd say, why are you throwing away the RPA stuff? Is it broken? And they said, oh, no, it works. Okay, then let's not throw away the stuff that works. Instead, the opportunity is to build on top of it. What are the things that you did not consider that you can now do that you want to build? Now, the thing that you might want to look at is where are the places where we can improve RPA? So for instance, one of the features in the Automator, the developer tools that we've come out with, right, and this was part of last year's announcements, was Generative Recorder. Generative Recorder is this wonderful tool that when it detects an application has changed, catches it, and it automatically goes and figures out a route around it and keeps your automation working. And we're finding that with the latest work on the PRE models, we're able to get about a 60% success rate. So in all those places where you had RPA break, RPA doesn't break anymore because you're able to get, yes? What was the name of that product again? Generative Recorder. Yes, the question was, what was the name of that product? Is Generative Recorder. It's part of Automator AI. So this is something where we can go and get the existing RPA tools to just go and work a lot better. So let's make sure that we're taking advantage of our investments that we've already made and getting the value out of them. Finally, revisit the things that didn't work. What was the stuff that we said, you know what, RPA is just not going to do this well? And this is especially true if you're looking at things like document automation, right? So those of you who went and looked at document automation 2-3 years ago may have saw that this Doc Auto stuff works maybe 50-60% of the time. It only works on forms. Here's a limited set of things, and then I got to go and train it every single time I have a form change. And then if you were dealing with handwritten parts of forms or something like that, you just didn't even consider those ideas. With a lot of these new AI tools, some of these things that were previously not possible are now possible. So go look at that backlog list and say, what did I skip, and revisit it. So with that, I want to talk about or share with you from Danny Sparrows. He is our VP of HR, or People Transformation, sorry. But he is, Danny's going to share with you the successes that he's had actually bringing these ideas to life inside of Automation Anywhere. Danny?
Thanks, Steve. All right, thank you. So I lead our people experience function at Automation Anywhere with Steve. Any other people/HR people in the room? All right, I got one. I will posit that probably all of us in this room, even titles aside, have a vested interest in helping people be productive and do their most impactful work. I won't make you raise your hands. I see a few nods. We'll go with that. I got into HR at the time, now people experience, soon to probably have another name in this change.
Sorry.
Got into this to help people. What I found quickly, 25 years ago when I started this journey, that a lot of the work that I was doing was paper pushing. Then it went to digital paper pushing. I don't know if I'm coining a phrase here, but I'm going to go with platform pushing is what we've been doing recently, where I've got teams of people that are involved in multiple different systems throughout the day, making sure things move from one step to another. Early in my career, when it was just me doing those things, fine. That's my job. I'll be good at it. I will focus on accuracy and speed, and I'll build processes around it. As I moved into leadership, it broke my heart. All of a sudden, I'm responsible for making sure lots of other people are doing administrative work. And over the last decade or so, we've been trying to change that with some success. So Steve talks about RPA to APA. We're not throwing any of the RPA away. These are things that we've built within RPA that have automated workflows and helped us sort of take processes and make them less mundane, get work done faster. Onboarding, offboarding, compensation management, benefits administration, early career bane of my existence. Now these things are done with ease. One of the things I want to talk about is performance and development. Again, I've got one people person in the room, but presumably everybody has received or given a performance evaluation. Again, I won't make you raise hands. It's no fun. It's no fun to give them. It's no fun to receive them. They're stress-laden. They're full of bias. And often, the outcome is not better performance. The outcome is either, okay, or demotivation. What do you mean I'm a 3 out of 5? I'm great. And so we looked at that and thought there's got to be a better way. Now, the pendulum swung over the last few years, and I've worked in organizations where we threw them completely out the window. and instituted just conversations, have managers have conversations with their people. That is helpful from the motivational phase, but it doesn't necessarily help with the bias. The idea that at some point we're going to evaluate people based on their performance and make recommendations to their compensation, make recommendations to their stock allocations, promote them, things along those lines. And so we wanted to reinvent that system. And with RPA, even before we got into APA, we had an opportunity to rethink how we would do this and do something that was, at the time, seemingly impossible. My fellow people person in the room was one of the creators of this program, so I take no credit. But we took what used to be a mundane process, we took some of the bias out of it by having managers answer a series of questions that just rated on a scale of 1 to 5, and didn't necessarily populate that straight to the employee. What they did was they took that information, ran it through an algorithm that ultimately generated somebody's performance and also their sort of relevance to the future of the organization. And with that input, then we combine it with an employee survey where they go through and answer some similar questions around their experience at the office, or the remote office as it may be these days. We took all that information and ultimately gave managers a tool that was somewhat tailored to each individual employee, outlining some areas where they can be helped and coached, some areas where they're doing great and they need encouragement, and some suggestions around quarterly conversations that they could have. So rather than you're a 3 out of 5, we get actionable, helpful information. As we move into APA, there's some cool things that we can do. We can tailor that even further and create customized learning and development programs to help people continue their learning and their growth as a professional. And quite frankly, that's going to be the key to success over the next couple of years, is just how quickly everybody in the organization can learn. Some of the other neat things we're doing in that space, talent assessment and feedback analysis and recommendations, immigration invoice management. It's not a really fun thing, but we've made that simple and automated a lot of that. So for anybody that's got something along those lines, hit us up afterwards, happy to talk through it. Even manager coaching. And I will say that our IT team didn't develop all of these. They did with some people within our HR team developed some of these solutions, and even some of the managers sort of self-built some of these things as well. So it is possible to create some cool stuff without a degree in computer science. One of the ones I want to talk about, agent, referral agent, a double agent. This is something that is ultimately, it started as an idea to, when we're ready to hire somebody, a way to look and see, are there automations within our workforce that could help alleviate the need for this hire? What we soon realized is that that may not be the best point of inclusion for this process, and we're starting to look at it from the point of view of managers being able to help their teams automate certain things, and ultimately we're going to roll this out to individuals. So we talk about making people experience, the idea that an individual could fill this form out, get a list of automations that might help them with their work, and then start to implement those. And to the extent we don't have the automation already built, it helps prioritize those. So we'll be able to have every single person in the organization participate in something along these lines, and that becomes a tool that we can use again and again. Again, not just slideware, although I'm only showing a slide. If you'd like to see it afterwards, we're happy to show you. What that's done for us over the years, I'm in the people team, so I can talk about some of the things that have impacted us. But it's helped my team do things that we wouldn't have otherwise had to do. So we're having strategic conversations, we're driving performance in different ways, participating in global expansion. But ultimately, what we've done is create an organization that's got higher trust and higher speed. One of our objectives this year was to look at trust in the organization, and the idea that if people trust what their managers are saying, trust what their leaders are saying, trust in the decisions that are being made about them and for them, and trust in their ability to influence those decisions, they come along for the ride a whole lot faster. And what we found is that our scores were too high. and I don't mean to brag, we set a goal that we would improve those things over the course of the year, and what we found was that they're actually pretty good. So now it's time to start spending that currency that is trust. And that's an incredible opportunity to have as an organization, to be able to impact actual outcomes instead of just doing busy work. And at this point, I'd like to invite up Patrick from the Washington Post.
All right. So we were offered two options. We said we could either add another 100 slides to this, and Patrick said no. Or we can do this a little more Q&A style and skip slides. So we figured, yeah, let's just skip the slides. Rumor has it you may have already seen a few slides today. So with that, Patrick, if you don't mind just introducing yourself and sharing a little bit about Washington Post.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Burton. I'm the head of IT and infrastructure, which is a group under the CTO office that kind of handles all of our enterprise systems, platforms, network security, including the work we're doing here on automation. I've been with the Post, I'm in my 30th year. So some of these disruptive technology transformational changes in our company I've had a ringside seat in, so this feels very familiar with AI coming at us. Our revenue is, so we're at Washington Post, we consider ourselves a media and technology company, okay? I know everyone associates us with the newspaper that we've had for years, which is great, but our revenue streams are digital subscriptions, and those can come in a variety of forms, and that's one of the things we're using AI and trying to innovate on how we would have someone be a paying customer besides just being a traditional subscription. Advertising, of course, on all of our platforms, including in the print. Print circulation, declining, and we know that. Still has a high profit margin, so we're trying to pivot that, make it still extend the useful life of that. Content syndication, which is pretty straightforward. Licensing, we actually have built a lot of our own content management system and content creation tools, and we license those to other media companies. We have 200-300 paying customers on our platform across the globe. And then events and sponsored content. So, you know, like all of us, we're focused on how do we grow our paying customer base and through some digital transformation activities. And then a big pillar is really just AI everywhere. And so talk about automation everywhere, we're just more generic AI everywhere across all of our organizations. So.
Excellent. So what are your top priorities for 2025? I imagine AI factors into that heavily.
Right. So I touched on them. So how do we grow our subscriber base? How do we innovate and provide offerings that aren't maybe the standard way you would subscribe to be a paying customer? And then AI everywhere, I mentioned. So taking automation anywhere aside for just a moment and talk about AI everywhere. Of course, we are investing. We have our own machine learning, data analytics, and AI team. So we have our own LLMs. We ingest our own content, packaging that in a way so that it can surface to our subscribers and our customers and our readers in different ways, innovative ways. We also think that that could be another revenue stream if our LLM agent in itself is how we would syndicate. So we can envision many LLMs calling us as an agent to answer certain things based on our expertise. Could be a revenue stream. And then personalization is a big topic as well. So whether you're a subscriber and we want to learn who you are and how you interact with us and give you a unique way to pay for our content, or you're the reader and we want to surface our content in a way that matches what you're looking for. Huge AI and our machine learning models are all over, used all over in that. And then I want to zoom up a second and just talk from the narrative inside our company, and when we talk about automation anywhere, it's really about it's cathartic, you know, talk about the journey. We're all having the same journey, right? We've all done workflows into systems. We've all done automations within those systems. We all have done RPAs probably, so we have a whole catalog of RPAs we've done, but you know, you hit limits on what you can do, especially for the Post as an SMB, a small and mid-sized business. So often we run into the problem also with APAs where the scale isn't there. You know, if you have X number of customers and X number of transactions, you run the math, it's very easy sometimes to say an APA would be perfect for this, let's invest in building that. We don't have as many of those as probably some of the bigger businesses. So we have to get a little bit smarter about how we apply those things. So I'm a big proponent, and I've got some of my engineers here that is fantastic. They laugh sometimes, but I'm a big proponent about using the right tool. So it sounds stupid, but it's like, oh, this is loose. I need to, tighten this screw. If someone says, good, I've got the perfect tool for you, and they bring me a jackhammer, not going to be so helpful, right? I need a Phillips head screwdriver. That's all I need. So it kind of plays into the keynote.
Are you saying no agents everywhere? I'm saddened.
No, on the contrary, I'm saying in the keynote, actually you said, like there's personal AI tools. Use the personal AI tool for what it's made for. And then there was a comment about try to be careful not to be siloed in certain platforms to say use their native automation and AIs. I think that's true to some extent, but I think there's an awful lot of cases where you should just activate and turn on the automations and AI in those tools. Don't try to rebuild them as an APA outside that tool. So I kind of see there's a place and time for all these things. So the narrative there, just use the right tool. So I think that's where we're at on this journey.
Have you tried using, because a lot of people have tried the co-pilots. And so I imagine that you've taken a go at some of the co-pilots out there for the personal productivity as well. Given that you're using the right thing for the right place, there's sort of the enterprise use of APA where you've been using us. You've also got, but have you adopted some of the co-pilots for personal use and maybe something that's a little more vertically specific?
I'll try to answer that question. So I think putting first of all, the way we talk about it within the company, we've tried to open the scope of what we're talking about. So yes, we're all about AI, and so we get fixated on how does this agent and this co-pilot work. It's broader than that. Like how are we leveraging automation across all our platforms? I don't care what tool it is. And so this process we put into specifically for automation anywhere is like, give us all the ideas, dump them into a funnel. We go through an assessment process. How are we going to solve that problem? That's been a real important step, and we're going to continue that because not all of those ideas should flow into automation anywhere. Many of them should. And so those are the ones we want to surface. And in some cases, we reroute them to another tool. And in some cases, I'll give you an example with customer care. That's where there's a lot of opportunity for us because of the volume. We were embarking on, okay, this path of email comes in and we want to categorize these tickets. We also have a lot of calls that still come in as much as we'd like to have people not call in. The fact is we just needed to activate some additional features in our IVR and use it natively to say, okay, that's going to be the easiest way, and now we can ingest that into our APA, right? So it's kind of exposed some of these ideas and lets people think through the process holistically, not just fixate on one thing or another. So that process has been important.
So you answered my question about how your team's taking to it, so which I think is equally important. In a lot of these transformational journeys, we don't go at them alone. We want to bring everyone along for the ride, right? So as you're leaning forward and seeing what's down the pipe for 2025, what are some of the agents that in particular you're starting to put some thought into where you see an impact being able to play out?
Yeah. So we have 4 use cases in particular that we're focused on right now. Some are in production, some are in QA, and we're getting in production. The reason we chose them is because we would like to exercise as much of the full scope and capability of automation anywhere as we can so that we can learn. So case number 1 is pretty straightforward. In our customer care environment, we use Zendesk. All the tickets go in there. Typically, we've had to have a human being read those tickets, categorize them, and say, this is what's the problem we're trying to solve. Then they go down through a workflow, and we solve the problem. So it's somewhat automated, but now we've been able, with generative AI, be able to just ingest all those tickets, send it to the APA, decipher what that problem is, categorize the ticket, put it back in Zendesk, and then we send it on its route. So you can see the obvious. Obviously, we've eliminated a lot of manual work from a person, but also we're shrinking the time to resolution, right? So if you're a customer, like, why do I have to wait 8 hours to hear back from you, right? So these are very straightforward things. Everyone has done these kinds of things before, but using the generative AI capability to have unstructured emails come in, but be able to decipher what that problem is and categorize it well, big benefit. And then it just kind of goes from there, because now once we get them categorized, build another APA or another agent, and ideally many of these categories will never be touched by anyone. You know, they come in, customer, we categorize them, we solve the problem for you. So that's number one. Second one, in the finance area, and many customers, in fact, when we did some of this exploration with Automation Anywhere, the finance and tax was one of the highlighted use cases that some people have gotten a lot of benefit out of. We also wanted to do that because we want to exercise the document processing capability, which I think is something we've never had before. We've all done, like you said, Danny, if it's structured data, you can OCR these things, high error rates, very error prone. It never really is able to be done very well. We're now finding that the unstructured data of these invoices coming in, we have very good success at being able to decipher exactly what that is and then assess the tax treatment on it, right? We're a privately held company, allows us some latitude on how we do our processes. We do not check the tax on every invoice that comes in. We spot check things, and obviously we're going to look for the ones that we think are most material. But I think we're going to do two things. We're going to eliminate a lot of manual effort on examining the tax treatment on these invoices. I think there may be some things where we're overpaying tax because we just haven't checked every invoice. We're going to now be positioned to be able to run all those invoices through, probably find some material amount of benefit just from not overpaying tax. That's another one. And then the opportunities beyond that on document processing or for legal, we're talking about legal and how we can run our contracts through and redline them automatically and so forth. Third one, what was the third one? In our advertising operations, we're working with one of our lead directors and senior directors that has a very good vision on end-to-end process. We have Salesforce, but we also have some things outside Salesforce. There's a lot of opportunity to really automate that end-to-end. We're just sort of picking first, saying when customers come in, we have many customers that come in, and we would like to be able to just, in a very quick way, have an agent automatically give them a quote and say, is this what you're looking for? Here's an opportunity for you. Like, it doesn't go into some mail queue that some rep has to then manually do and whatever. It's pretty automated and immediate. It sort of reminds me of years ago in advertising used to be classified advertisings were a thing. Classified ads were a thing. They're not anymore. But we found that if you give people self-service, they actually upsell themselves, believe it or not. So I think that my hunch is not only we're going to give better customer experience, I think we'll give our customers an opportunity to just, through an agent, get some quotes back and forth with us, and they will probably upsell themselves on some of the products, even more than a human being selling them. That's my hunch, my theory. We'll see how it plays out. And then the last one, Danny, is HR. We're tip of the iceberg of what you all have done, and we're going to get there. But even just the first one is take all the information on our intranet portal and our HR portal, some of it's in Workday, surfacing that in a way so that people can actually find what the hell, answer their question, right? I mean, so even just how many people are always trying to go to these different places and get the answer they're looking for. You search, you can't find it, whatever. 600 or 700 of these things end up in an email directly to a person. They have to then do it. So what we found, a couple things. One, we didn't realize how personalized some of that HR content was, so had to build some personalization. We had it already, so bounce it off the authentication layer, know who you are. So if you're a manager or not a manager, if you're an employee or a contractor, you get all those. So we'll have the personalized data surfaced. And I think the last part of this really is the learning, right? So you guys have already iterated this. So we'll find that, we no longer have 600 questions coming to you, you only have 400, but that's interesting. What can we do to improve your data so that those 400 questions can be answered in an automatic way too? It's like we should have very few exceptions where a human being has to answer that question for you. So that's the iterative process we'll have to go through, but we're really pleased with being able to exercise all of what Automation Anywhere can do. I think it puts a whole lot of new tools in our toolkit to do automation. So.
Fantastic. So first of all, thank you very much. Patrick, you can give him a round of applause here. So we've got a few minutes. If time check is right, we've got 13 minutes. Yeah, 13 minutes. So we've got, still have a little bit of time for some Q&A. So hopefully you've been saving up questions. I see one right here, so go for it.
Well, that was great information. Thank you so much for sharing. We
Maybe if we can just repeat the question.
Yeah, I think the question is how do, you're embarking on this with Automation Anywhere. How do you start this journey? You know, how do you tackle it? Where do you begin? How do you justify it? So forth and so on.
I believe she also added that she was specifically tired of talking to us, and she was stopped trusting us, so that's why she's asking you. Oh, okay. So, see, she's following my advice not to talk to me.
So all I can do is
Patrick.
reflect on our own journey. So I'll say, we mentioned this earlier, we go through these technological waves. The same CFO, he's about ready to retire this year, God bless him, love him, but you go back, it wasn't that far when we were debating cloud, whether we should move, how and when we should move to the cloud, right? We had an internal data center, and you start getting these spreadsheets like, well, if I do the capital investment here, like, you know, looking back, it's ridiculous, right? It's like, is there anyone here that would ever think that it's like, we shouldn't be running in the cloud ever, right? It's like, it's ridiculous, and I think we're exact same spot with AI. So the problem is the ROI. So I'll just say, we're up front of this. We picked some of the, like the four I mentioned, we worked through with our Automation Anywhere folks, looked at other customers, what they were doing, and we quantified those as best we could. But I was very clear, and I said, the exercise here isn't to justify, we spend this much with Automation Anywhere, we get this much return. That's not the right way to look at it. And I know that drives the CFOs crazy. There's a leap of faith element to this. I would just tell you, look back at how we did cloud computing. You could sit there and look at all the spreadsheets all you want for 5 years, and all you've done is put yourself 5 years behind where everyone else is, and you should have been moving. So there's an adoption curve and a learning curve that every organization has to go through. So we're at the point where we said, we know enough where we can get real value, we can quantify that, but we're not going to worry about the leap of faith part in year 2, 3, 4. We just know we need to get that, we need to start climbing that adoption curve because we all have to learn that. So that doesn't answer your question exactly, but what I would say is, you know, I think an organization has to understand when are they going to take that leap of faith, because it's not just about the X's and O's of ROI in this investment in this moment in time. You're investing in climbing that adoption curve is what you're really doing. Okay.
The question for anyone who couldn't hear was, what were some of the challenges? Yeah.
I think the challenges for all these types of things, and this in particular, is just, I mentioned we were in a quarterly business review the other day. I said, look, we have to be aware of AI overload. Okay, it's great. It's a tenet of where we want to go, strategic objective, AI everywhere. But it's, you know, what's an LLM and how's this and I got Google Gemini on my desk and am I supposed to use this? And then now you're telling me about Automation Anywhere. So we are all drinking from the fire hose. I think having that process, and we're working together on that, just trying to, all of us educate ourselves as we go. Again, I'm a big proponent. Use the right tool for what you're trying to solve. And it's not all pipe it all into Automation Anywhere. It's not all make an RPA. It's not all go do Copilot. It's a combination of those things. What I will say is, on the other end, the reason why we're with Automation Anywhere is because I do think right now you're very uniquely positioned to be in the middle of the systems. So, right, it's like, you know, being able to orchestrate those, call an agent across different platforms and call RPAs you already have existing and orchestrate that end-to-end process. We're not there yet. It'll take us a while, but we'll get there. So.
That's great. That's exactly my sentiment. So you just kind of confirm my thoughts as well. Around, you know, not one, it's about really a decision framework, what technology you use for what use case. And right now we're kind of struggling with that because our leaders are thinking, you know, put everything in Palantir. And I'm like, no, that doesn't work like that, right? So thank you for confirming some of my direction as I'm going.
Excellent. So I apologize. I had an off by 10 error, so we're actually out of time. Yeah. So I have a few minutes afterwards, so if anyone does have questions, and if you can
I'm here as long as you all want.
Yeah, just join us up front and while we're in the middle of the change, and we're happy to answer additional questions. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.